Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and today I want to talk about sleep in moms, and in particular, sleep in moms after their kids are a little bit older. When we have kids, it's pretty well known that sleep is going to be disrupted, and this happens for both partners. Um, Mothers, fathers, same sex partners, everyone experiences disruptions in sleep with a new baby in the house. Actually, siblings probably do too. Um, the thing though is that for partners, that sleep disruption tends to be a little bit less severe and not last quite as long. For moms, it gets a little bit trickier. For the first, let's say, 6 to 12 months after having a baby, we are really in the postpartum period, and there's a lot of things to consider in that period. And I'm not an expert in infant sleep, I'm an expert in mom sleep. So, starting around age 1, it's not uncommon for kids to start sleeping a little bit better and start sleeping a little bit longer through the night. But that may take a year, 18 months, it might take 2 years, it might take even longer than that. The point, though, is that at some point you're going to get to a phase where your kids are pretty reliably sleeping through the night. Now, there are exceptions to this. My 5-year-old still wakes me up in the middle of the night sometimes. It's certainly not frequent, and he doesn't usually, I don't think, ever do it more than once a night anymore. But I'm still up in the night as a mom, and that is totally normal. But let's say that your children are, or your child is reliably sleeping through most nights now, and you think, okay, I can finally catch up on all these years of sleep deprivation. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. I cannot wait. And you go to bed and you lie there, and either you can't fall asleep or you fall asleep with no problem, but you're up in the middle of the night, or you fall asleep and you stay asleep, but then you're up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and you can't get back to sleep. Those are the three most common sleep disruptions that I see in moms after they've had kids and who aren't waking because their kids are waking them up. And it can be very frustrating. And I want to talk a little bit about why the most common reasons for those and what are the things that you can do about it and where to start. So, reason number one is age, unfortunately, and that's not really something that we can control. If you had kids young, so let's say if you had kids in your, maybe your late teens or your 20s, and, by the time your kids are sleeping through the night, you're in your mid 20s, chances are age is probably not playing so much of a role. But if you had kids in your late 20s or your 30s or into your 40s, and now it's 3, 4, 5, 10 years later when your kids are finally sleeping through the night, maybe you've had a few kids, age very well might be playing a role. So as we age, our sleep gets harder. We have a harder time falling asleep. We have a harder time staying asleep. There's a few reasons for this. The one of the big ones is actually melatonin. So melatonin production goes down as we age. Unfortunately, I mean, we can talk about melatonin separately at another point, but there's not a lot we can do about age-related sleep disruptions. There's not a lot we can do about age-related sleep disruptions. We really just kind of have to match where we're at from that perspective. But the second reason, and this ties into age in a big way, is hormones. So in the immediate postpartum period, it's very normal that your hormones are kind of all over the place. And in particular, estrogen and progesterone, the two of the sex hormones, and they play a big role in sleep, drop in the postpartum period. So it's not uncommon for women who are newly postpartum to be experiencing sleep issues. A couple years after you have kids, those hormones should go back to normal. And I use air quotes there because, well, for all lab-related purposes, they might be within the normal ranges. I have definitely met more than my share of women whose symptoms of hormones change after they have kids and don't go back to where they were pre-kids. So menstrual cycles might change, skin might change, moods might change, and sleep might change. So the actual sex hormones playing a role in postpartum sleep, and then even after the postpartum period, is a big possibility. But the other place where hormones connect here is with age and perimenopause and menopause. So menopause is when your periods have stopped and you haven't had a menstrual cycle in a full year. But perimenopause is that wonderful time before that, and it can last up to 10 years. So some women might be experiencing perimenopausal symptoms as early as their early to mid 30s. So if that's the age where you're at coming out of having kids and through your sleepless nights, now your estrogen and progesterone again are maybe playing a role in your hormones and in your sleep. The other hormone that can play a big role in sleep is your thyroid hormone. So having either too much or too little can actually interfere with sleep. hypothyroidism, or too low thyroid hormone. Symptoms that you might notice with that are you might be very cold and feel intolerant to cold, sensitive to cold. You might notice dry skin, dry hair, dry nails. You might notice that you're constipated a lot, and very tired. So those are the symptoms of hypothyroidism, or most common. There's lots, but those are the most common ones. Hyperthyroidism is when your thyroid levels are too high. So in that case, you're also probably experiencing a lot of fatigue, but you're also probably experiencing maybe night sweats, heart palpitations, maybe you're feeling jittery or anxious. So either on either end of that spectrum, if you're experiencing symptoms like that, it's definitely worth going to see your doctor and to talk to your doctor about, because they can check your thyroid hormones and make sure that they're in the optimal range that we want them to be. Those on both ends of the spectrum can interfere with your sleep. So there's a lot of hormone stuff that can shift after you've had kids that can really play a big role in sleep. Talking to your doctor or a naturopathic doctor to kind of do a more thorough analysis on your hormones can be really helpful. But there's lots that we can do lifestyle-wise as well to make sure those are where they need to be. Reason number 3 is habits. So before you had kids, maybe you had a nice wind down time before you went to bed. Maybe you had time to do other things. Our habits change when we have kids. That's just reality. So maybe, you're frantically cleaning up and packing lunches and doing laundry before you go to bed. Or maybe, I have talked to a lot of women, a lot of moms who do this too. They stay up late because they just want that time for themselves. They don't have their alone time anymore, and their kids are maybe up till 8 or 9 at night, and so they just want that extra hour or two to watch some TV, unwind, do something for themselves, which I totally understand. But it's very possible that your sleep is off because your habits are off. The other thing, so those are the habits that we're in control of, but there's also the habits that I'm going to say that our kids were in control of, right? So going to bed and associating that with needing to be up in an hour, that's a habit that would have been established because your child needs you. Habits that where you're kind of listening and your habit to jump at the slightest sound and get out of bed, that's sort of a learned habit. There's a lot of different levels of sensitivity there, but that's sort of a learned habit. So there are a lot of habits that change with kids that we need to kind of be aware of and be able to kind of make shifts to change them back. And that's a huge conversation for another day. But follow me here or on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, where I do a lot of talking about the habits that are going to set you up there, that are going to be helpful for both hormones and for general sleep. And the fourth reason that sleep is disrupted after we have kids is stress. So stress plays a huge role in sleep, both in the subjective experience of it. So if you're going to bed at night and you feel stressed, you're less likely to go to sleep, but also in the objective hormones as a relation to that. So cortisol spikes and cortisol levels change, they can significantly impact sleep. It's just a fact that the more people you have to think about and care for, probably the higher your stress levels are going to be. Stress is a very subjective thing, so we can't really compare stress levels between people who have kids and people who don't. But just think for yourself, like, what were your stress levels like before you had kids? You may have said you were a 9 out of 10 on your stress levels, and then after you have kids, you might also think you're a 9 out of 10, but your number, the score of 9 might have changed, right? So higher stress in parents is very common. Stress really impacts sleep. Make sure you figure out what are your big triggers for stress, and what are things that you do for you that can help relieve stress. So is it something relaxing in the evening? Is it exercise? Is it meditation or breathing exercise, or whatever it is, whatever that looks like? Helping lower your stress hormones in your body is going to help improve your sleep. So age, we can't do much about. Hormones, if you suspect you've got a hormone imbalance that's interfering with your sleep, definitely go talk to your doctor, because they can do a hormone panel, they can do some investigation there. And then habits and stress. So those are things that we do have control over, we just need awareness about. If you have any questions or you're concerned about these, or you want some tips or anything, reach out to me. This is where this is what I love to do, this is what I love to talk about, and I've got lots of resources available. So if you're struggling with sleep after having kids, follow me on social media, send me a message, happy to get back to you. And good luck. I hope you have a great sleep tonight.